everyone. I'm really excited to start my new blog, and I've decided to do a blog specially focused on adventures of caregiving. And I want to tell my first story about something that happened when I was very young, my very first adventure in caregiving. So, first, I just want to let you all know that I've been caregiving for my husband for over 20 years, and he is schizophrenic as a result of sarin gas that he was exposed to during the first Gulf War. And he is a handful, and we argue a lot, but he is my very best friend. And caregiving for him has been a huge adventure and a great learning experience. And I just want to share so many stories with you. But I'm not going to tell you any of those stories tonight, my very first blog. And I'm kind of doing this late at night because it was mayhem today getting set up. So my first caregiving adventures began around 45 or 46 years ago when my mom married my stepdad a week before I started second grade. And my new dad's father was caregiving his wife, my new grandma, who had diabetes, had just had a hip replacement recently, and was using a walker, and she was practically blind. I just remember her having these huge, thick glasses when I met her, and they were quite a pair. She was completely dependent on him for so many things, and I just remember him always saying when she would ask him to do this and do that and do the other, he would say, "Good night, nurse," all the time. And I just wondered where that came from. I just thought that was so funny. So about a year after my parents got married, my grandpa died of a heart attack out in his orchard. And I remember at the funeral, my poor grandma was so scared of what was going to happen next. And she kept saying, "What will become of me?" over and over and over at the funeral. And she was terrified of losing her home and of leaving all of her beautiful stuff. She just did not know how she would get along without her husband, who had been taking care of her every need. And so she actually had a lot of help initially from amazing neighbors and from her church family and from my little sister, my new stepsister, who is actually a year and a half younger than me. And she was just going into first grade when all this happened. No, she was going into first grade when my parents got married. She was going into second grade when my grandfather died. And so along with neighbors and my step cousins, my little stepsister stayed with my grandma, I think 2 summers in a row. And I got to spend 1 month, about a month, with my little stepsister and my grandma, helping her at her house. And I think we made more problems than we helped her with. I just have some really vivid memories. My first memory is of making gravy for my grandma to go with her meal. I don't remember what else we cooked up for her, poor thing. But I made gravy, and it consisted of a stick of butter, a cup of flour, and a cup of water. And it didn't turn out so good. And I just remember me and my stepsister standing at the stove, stirring and stirring and stirring, and wondering why it didn't turn into gravy. And so another fond memory that I have of this experience being with my grandma for a month was that we had a storage room. My grandma had a storage room in her basement, and her basement was unfinished, and it had some rooms, but it was kind of spooky and dark, and there was a light down in her basement, down in the middle of the basement on the ceiling, and it had a string. So you had to go over to the string. There wasn't a light switch on the wall. You had to go over to the string to turn it on. And my sister and I were both so terrified of going and turning on that light because it was dark all the way from the stairs to the string. But one night, one evening for dinner, my grandma wanted some peaches, I think. We went downstairs for something, peas or I don't know, from the storage room. So we went downstairs, we went and we were just clinging to each other because we were so scared. I don't know why we were so scared. This wasn't our first night there, but we turned on the light and then we made our way over to the storage room door. And as we were going over there, I saw a spider on the floor and I became fascinated with this spider because I thought it looked different and unique. And my sister just remembers being really frustrated because I was focused on this spider. And as she went to open the storage room door, it pushed back at her. And so it scared her. She thought there was somebody behind the door pushing the door back at her. And she tried to get my attention to tell me that there was this person in our storage room waiting to murder us. And I wasn't listening because I was watching the spider. And so she tried one more time to open the door and it shut really hard back against her. And she screamed and I screamed and we went running up the stairs and out into the yard screaming our heads off. And the neighbor lady came over and wondered what was going on. And so she took us downstairs and it turns out there was a big folding table that had fallen over against the door. And as my sister tried to open the door, the table pushed against it. So that was our adventures as little youngsters trying to take care of my grandma so that she could stay in her own home. Well, it soon became evident that she wasn't going to be able to stay in her own home. And so we took her to our home where we had, it was like the Brady Bunch. My stepfather brought 3 kids to the marriage and my mom had brought me and my brother and sister to the marriage. And so there was mayhem in our home. And my grandma spent part of her time with us and part of her time with my dad's sister. And the time that she was with us, she was not happy. There was so much noise and so many kids, and my parents were very strict, and it was just not fun for my grandma. And so she kept begging us, please take me to the Golden Living Center in the town where she had been from. We lived 4 hours away from where my grandma's house was. She begged us to take her to the Golden Living Center because that's where she wanted to live. And she had friends there, and she had fond memories of having visited her friends there before we took her away from there. So we finally, at some point, that was my dog. She was going to jump on my lap and hit her head on the desk door. Sorry, Maggie. But anyway, so we finally we wanted to care for our grandma at home. We didn't want to stick her in a nursing home because that's supposedly the mean thing to do. But she begged us, so we took her there. And shortly thereafter, there's my dog. She made it. Shortly thereafter, she met a man named Bob, and they became boyfriend and girlfriend. And she lived out the rest of her years in the Golden Living Center. And she was very happy. And we went to visit her, and she was just happy. So my moral of the story is, it's a really good idea if you find out what your loved one really wants. And if you can do what it is that they really want, then do it. A lot of times we try to make decisions for our loved one, and it really helps if we just let them make the decisions that they can. There's a lot of times that we can't let them. And I just want to say thank you for listening to my blog, and I'm going to have another fun story in a day or two. So have a nice night.